What's up, everyone? I'm former college athlete James Prince, and welcome to the channel. If you love in-depth football analysis, especially when it comes to offensive line play, you're in the right place. This series will dive into the names, the film, and trends that define the success or failure up front. From the schemes and techniques to roster construction and adjustments, we're going to take a deep dive into what makes an offensive line work. Now, if you're wondering about the Michigan shirt here, that is because we are doing a very special episode breaking down the Los Angeles Chargers, and this is me paying homage to the man himself, Jim Harbaugh. I'm a big fan of what he did in Michigan, and especially the other places he coached at in college, like Stanford and San Diego, and then in the pros at San Francisco. Every single one of those programs had the identity of a very strong, very tough, very physical, very smart offensive line. And year after year, he just kept on producing with the help of so many great players and great coaches throughout all those systems. And the same is happening here with the Los Angeles Chargers. So today's video, we're going to be breaking down the Chargers offensive line from the 2024 season, what they did well, where they struggled, and how can they improve moving forward into 2025. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and follow me on all my socials down below. Now, let's get into the video. So this here is a table of the last 3 jobs that Jim Harbaugh has been at, where you compare the numbers of the coach and the season before Jim got hired, and then comparing it to the results after Coach Harbaugh was brought on to this team. So we're doing the breakdown of the 49ers, the Michigan Wolverines, and the Los Angeles Chargers. So as you can see here, in almost every single year with the 49ers and in Michigan, that second year in terms of the run game progression takes a phenomenal leap. You can see in 2012, they have their highest rushing yards per game, highest yards per carry, eventually helping them lead to Super Bowl having just one less rushing touchdown than in 2013. Same with Michigan. You had, highest rushing yards, every single category, all besides the record for that 15-0 season when they won the national championship. It helped them still finish number 10 in the country, losing in the Orange Bowl, but you can see 41 rushing touchdowns, 43 rushing, it's almost 44 rushing attempts a game. The emphasis on running the ball and establishing the run game, having strong, physical, smart offensive linemen is encoded into the DNA of what makes Jim Harbaugh such a successful coach. And not only Jim, but the whole family with John and their dad as well. Their whole identity, especially when people coming out of the Jim Harbaugh tree, has been the emphasis and establishment of the run game. And it's not just a specific scheme that they like to focus on, or whether it's focusing on, hey, just doing outside zone or just doing power. The Harbaughs, especially Jim, they've been able to incorporate, and you'll see in this film, a lot of duo, a lot of ISO blocking, a lot of power, a lot of inside zone, a lot of outside zone. And this roster that they had last year and what I think they're going to be doing for 2025 is really going to help them complement the run game into whatever way they can find advantages against this defense. So even here with the Chargers breakdown, we only have 1 year of data to go off of, but just looking at the comparison from 2023 to 2024, it's almost night and day in terms of what the offense was able to do with the run game. So you have almost 14 yards more per game. You're averaging 2 or 3 more carries a game. You're getting more yards per carry, and you're scoring the ball more. This allows the offense, especially in the NFL, because the defenses are so good, not only from the coaching perspective, but from all the players. If you can have such a much more balanced attack, it keeps the defenses having to guess and not being able to just say, hey, we know they can't run the ball, so we're just going to have 6-man, 5-man boxes and play nickel defense, make the quarterback throw the ball 40, 50 times a game. And unfortunately, you can see in one of the down games that they had this year against the Texans, where the Chargers get down, have a pretty big comeback to face. When Justin Herbert has to throw the ball 50, 40 times, they're gonna make mistakes eventually. And that's not just with Justin Herbert, but that's with any quarterback, even with the Super Bowl. When the Chiefs were getting down, 28-0, You know, Patrick Mahomes is having to almost throw the ball every single play. The Eagles can just sit back, read his progressions, and just jump on those throws. So it is so critical having such a strong run game, being able to lean on that run game and say, yeah, we can trust the offensive line, we can trust the quarterback, we can trust the running back to make the right read, make the right cut, have everybody on their blocking assignments, and pick up meaningful yards on each play. So I think with this, I'll talk about more about this later at the end of the video, but 2025, expect a massive jump in these numbers already from what the Chargers were doing in 2024. So now that we've kind of delved into the philosophy and mindset and what goes into a successful Jim Harbaugh team, let's take a look at some of the free agency and draft decisions that were made going into the 2024 season, and then the 2024 starting lineup for the Los Angeles Chargers. So first, looking at the free agent departures heading into the 2024 season, there were only really two names of notice in terms of players who were making an impact and had started over multiple games. The first one was Corey Linsley, who, when the Chargers released him, actually retired. Center, played for the Packers, was actually the highest paid center in the league in 2021 when they first gave him his contract. And then the second player was Will Clapp, the other center who started 11 games, played the majority of the season. He ended up leaving, going to Buffalo after the season. Then the first free agent signing was Bradley Bozeman, a center who played for the Ravens and the Carolina Panthers. Really good player, only signed for a 1-year, $1.1 million deal. And he was named the starting center, was actually named captain as well, and started all 17 games for the Chargers this past season. Then in the draft, the Chargers drafting in the 5th pick with Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. 6'8", 320 pounds. There's been so much said about this guy. He checks almost every single box. I can't really say that there was anything when it came to the draft process when he was coming out of college that people were like, oh my gosh, like stay away from this because of X, Y, and Z. No, I mean, dad played in the NFL, went to Notre Dame, started for multiple years, checks all the boxes physically and mentally especially. And during this past season, he certainly lived up to the expectations of what a rookie tackle can do in the NFL. And certainly he's going to be taking a big leap in 2025. We're going to take, when we look into some of the clips here, there's a couple clips that I thought he's just absolutely manhandling some of these guys. But then there's times where he's just making mistakes, and that's, I truly believe, just, him having to adjust to the speed and the strength and the power of the NFL. And I think with time and with age and maturity, he's only going to get better. So comparing from the 2023 season to the 2024 season, 3 of the 5 starters had returned from the season. So you had Rashawn Slater at left tackle, who was drafted in 2021. I thought he's such a good player. Had a PFF rating of 91.1 this season, ranked 2nd among NFL tackles. And in fact, in the 2024 season, he only allowed 22 pressures, which was the fewest that he's had in his career in the NFL. So keep an eye, again, Rashawn Slater, another guy where you have Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, guys for the next 8 or 9 years are going to be top of their game tackles. And as we go onwards, you're going to see that the biggest addressing point that the Chargers are going to have to make is at that guard position. Then at left guard, you had Zion Johnson, who was drafted in 2022 by the Chargers out of Boston College. Really good player, really good guard in the NFL. I think just with him, it's just going to be a thing where he has to keep developing. And I think the second year into Jim Harbaugh's offense, he's going to also take another leap. Then at center, you had Bradley Bozeman. We already discussed about him. Played really well, captain of the team, one of the captains of the team. He's the oldest guy on this offensive line, I believe, in his 30s. So he brings that maturity, that leadership to such a young core of guys on this offensive line. Then at right guard, you had Trey Pipkins III, who had the lowest PFF grade out of the offensive line. And there were definitely moments where he played well, but it's clear that the Chargers, as we'll discuss later in the video, have made moves to move on from him, either have him back up and be a supporting player or, move on from him altogether. So now let's go look into some film. So for this breakdown, we're going to look at some of the games where they played really well. As we go through the games, I will point out maybe there's one or two clips where I thought there were maybe causes for concern. So the three games we're going to look at: Week 2 against the Carolina Panthers, Week 10 against the Tennessee Titans, and then Week 11 in the Cincinnati Bengals. And then the two games that I picked out that the Chargers need to look at, learn from, and figure out, how they can improve is the game Week 3 against the Steelers in Pittsburgh, and then the playoff game that I alluded to earlier, the wild card game in Houston against the Texans. So we're going to take a look at those 5 games, and then after that, we're going to take a breakdown of what's going to be happening, what moves have the Chargers have already made in 2025. So on this first play, we have outside zone, but on the backside here, if you look closely, we have the center, right guard, and right tackle basically working a combination of an outside zone working to number 54. Now, the defense with the Panthers they're in a head-up formation, so you can either call this, odd structure, where you have a head-up nose and then you have 2 4 eyes just above between the guards and tackles. So what the backside guard and backside tackle call is what's called usually a fold call, where instead of you have your normal B block combination, you instead have the right guard blocking back on the 4-eye and the tackle pulling around, looping around the block so he can climb up to the next level. But what they did on this play was, as the nose stunted over into the backside A gap, Bozeman passes off that block and the right tackle and center flip responsibilities. So now the center can climb up to the backside linebacker, and Joe Alt, who's already in his full-on sprint, able to get leverage, can just reach the nose tackle and create a wall on that backside. It's super interesting. I've never seen anything like it before. So that was really fascinating. And then you have on the front side, you have a tight end blocking play side, so he's going to collect that overhang. And then the left tackle and left guard are just creating a simple, double block to the play side backer. They can get that off. Right guard can pick that off easily. And then the running back can make a really good cut, allowing them just to gash the Panthers defense. If you ask a guy on the offensive line who loves to pull what one of their favorite plays is, chances are it's this play here, better known as a trap block, which is a part of the gap scheme family. So you have a 3-tech on the play side going to the boundary. So the right tackle and the right guard are going to act like they're going to deuce block them, like on power. But instead, the right guard is kind of going to give him like a little shimmy and then work back down into the A gap, help him with the center. And then the right tackle is just going to completely avoid him, climb up to number 54, the linebacker. This leaves 93 stepping up into the gap and allows Zion Johnson, the left guard, to just absolutely manhandle him. What's really good about this clip is that 93 does a good job as a defensive lineman in not going too far upfield, tightening down with the right guard. But as he tightens down, Zion Johnson does an excellent job reading what the defensive lineman is doing. Instead of him running upfield and allowing him to do a natural kick-out block, the defensive lineman squeezes down, which forces Zion Johnson to square up his block and just get into his normal run blocking base, getting low pad level, hip to hip, eyes underneath his chin, and driving him off the ball. All of this to say is that when the running back receives the ball and he sees Zion Johnson, instead of doing a kick-out block, squaring him up, he's able, instead of trying to force that run into the play side A gap, he's able to bounce it up over and make the correct read for the Chargers to get a really good gain on this play. This first clip here is the Chargers running ISO. Now, with Jim Harbaugh, everybody knew at Michigan how good the tight end play, especially in the run blocking game, was and how important it was to the success of that team. So not only does, the center and Lipkins do a great job on this block, working to the backside backer, And then 44 is able to fit right into that gap because of the displacement by the center and right guard. Let's not discount Joe Alt here as well. He's doing an excellent job, having a strong backside hand with his right arm underneath the Titans player's chest plate. Both guys, the right guard and the right tackle, do such a good job that it's just so easy for 44 just to literally walk in there, meet the linebacker in the hole, providing the Chargers with a huge gain offensively. Then you go into the very next play. Chargers are running outside zone. And just from all 5 guys, not only with the offensive line, but with the outside receivers and the tight ends, the effort from everybody on this team to finish blocks, even if they're not, the highlight of the play, if they're not carrying the ball, everybody's doing their part and giving that extra effort. Well, I want you to watch, especially on the backside here, Zion Johnson, the speed that he's had, and he's doing a really good job on outside zone, not going where the linebacker is, but where he's going to, and he's able to beat him to that spot and cover him up cleanly. Then you have Bozeman, Pipkins, and Alt unhitching the wagon, letting the guys just fly down the field. Alt and Pipkins do an excellent job just covering up their guy and displacing both players. And it just shows that the ability for the Chargers on back-to-back plays to gain positive momentum is something that they really need to build on going into 2025. This next clip of outside zone, I want you to watch the front side, specifically Rashawn Slater and Zion Johnson. Both do an excellent job with their footwork. Zion Johnson's being patient with the 3-tech, who then bumps over into the A-gap. He keeps his outside hand free as soon as he feels Bozeman get over there, and he's able to climb up to the linebacker. Same thing with him on the backside. He's going to where the linebacker is going to be, not where he is currently. And then just watch Rashawn Slater on the bottom right of the screen here. I mean, he's able to climb up there, throw 56 out of the club. It's such a good rep here. And then as well on the backside, Pipkins, he's doing a good job trying to fight 93 to get that cutoff. And then Joe Alt's just trying to make sure that he can get into that play. Really good play overall by. Then when we go into the Bengals game, you can see a lot of the stuff that they did well in the Panthers and Titans game carrying over to this game. This first clip of outside zone, tight ends, wide receivers, all 5-0 linemen, everybody's committed to blocking and straining on and giving that extra effort, which allows the running back to basically go untouched for about 6 or 7 yards. It's really good. It's really fun to watch. Also to note, watch Joe Alt on the backside here. He does a really good job getting out of his stance, getting into that position, and then he sees his ID, the safety, coming down, rolling down, and he's able to stop on a dime and cut him off, which really is an underrated aspect of this play. Now, this play is kind of interesting. It's not everybody doing an excellent job. It's more about the second effort displayed by certain guys on this play. So the Chargers are running, they're kind of selling inside zone for pass protection on a play action call. The thing I would critique here, especially with Bozeman, is that on inside run pass, like play action, he's, going a little bit too far into the A gap. He needs to stick more on that nose until he can feel Zion Johnson get over there and take over that block. He kind of leaves a little bit too early, which allows the nose to kind of split that double team. Bozeman does a good job recovering, but then when Pipkins gets overextended and he has no one to help him in the A gap, Joe Alt at the last second here sees he has nobody in the C gap, and he makes an incredible extra effort to block the 3-tech, allowing Justin Herbert to roll out into the pocket and get out of there before they take a sack. So now we're going into the breakdowns of where I think the Chargers struggled last year. The 2 games I picked were the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Houston Texans from the wildcard game. The Steelers game in particular, we're going to show a couple clips of where they struggled in run blocking. And then in the Texans game, I'm sure as many of you guys know, they really struggled in pass protection just because of the fact that they got down so early and they had to throw the ball a ton, and the Texans were just able to dial up stunt after twist after pass rush move on these guys. So we're going to take a look at those clips first. This first clip from the Steelers game is actually really interesting in terms of why it broke down. At first glance, you just see Bradley Bozeman and Zion Johnson on completely 2 different levels and spaces. You have Bradley climbing up to the play side linebacker, and then you have Zion who is working back to the backer over the tight end. And at first you're wondering, well, who's at fault? What's the issue with this? And it's actually both guys are kind of right in what they thought was going on. So when you first look at the play in the beginning, there's no overhang at first from what you can see on the screen, which means with the tight end on the play side, that guard and right tackle, right guard combination is going up to 50, and the center left guard combination is going working backside. But right at the last moment, the Steelers insert another player on the edge, which Joe Alt on the right side actually sees him out there and is trying to push the tight end to pick up that block. Now, if this were able to work out in a perfect world, you would have Joe Alt and 81 on the overhang and the extra defensive player on outside. Then you would have Pipkins being money and staying on tight on that defensive lineman, with Bozeman and Zion Johnson now taking over the ID of who the right guard and right tackle were taking over, with the backside left tackle Rashawn Slater and the tight end working up to the center and left guard's call. But because it happened so fast and the linebackers were rotating backside, there clearly wasn't enough time for communication, which allows the nose to split this double team and is a cause for a TFL. Then on this second play, the biggest issue, as I've just cropped out on the backside here with the center, left guard, and left tackle, both the left guard and the center just give up way too much pressure and get dented in by the defensive line. When you're running outside zone, understanding that you're running laterally, but you have to be able to dig your feet, roll your hips through, and be able to gain ground, meaning end up on the positive side of the line of scrimmage, not in your own backfield. The Steelers, obviously, with Cam Hayward and the excellent defensive line that they have, they're strong enough, they're fast enough, they understand what play it is, and they're able to dent both Bozeman and Zion back, which causes the running back to be hesitant in his cut, which then allows the outside linebacker, who's screaming off the edge on the backside, to make the play. So in this game with the Texans, Jamari Slayer was actually playing at right guard here instead of Trey Pipkins, and unfortunately Slayer doesn't do a good job on this rep. He is way overextended in his punch, meaning instead of his arms being at around a 45 degree, maybe 60 degree angle, he's fully locked out on his punch. And when he misses on his punch, the defensive lineman does a great job knocking his hands down. He gets too overextended trying to lock his arms out, lunges forward, which makes the defensive line's job a whole lot easier. He can just knock his hands down, and as soon as the offensive lineman is lunging over, all you have to do is hit a simple swim move, and Justin Herbert gets sacked on this play. It is also interesting to note that on the left side, with Slater and Johnson, they're a little bit late to the twist, but it's not too terrible. Bradley Bozeman does a pretty decent job stopping the rush from the nose, and then Joe Alt has to really slide out far out to the right side because they had a wide receiver basically line up almost as a tight end, which then widened the path of the Texans edge rusher. Then in this clip, this was actually back-to-back plays. So I was talking earlier about how well they were doing in the run game, stacking plays. Well, in the playoffs here, pass protection, because they're having, empty protection and the Texans are just rushing everybody, they aren't doing a good job here. So on this first play, the Texans actually have 6 guys lined up on the line, which the Chargers then try to slide out to the field, leaving Will Anderson, who's the overhang at the bottom of the screen, basically being Justin Herbert's hot read because he's a right-handed quarterback. He can try to see him from instead of being on the left side on his blind side. Unfortunately, 2 out of the 3 guys on the left side bail into coverage. So while the Chargers did a 4-man slide and Joe Alt is just locked in on the guy on top of him, there's 2 guys basically running free on the backside here, which allows Will Anderson to just get a clean shot at Justin Herbert here. So then on this play, you have the Texans overloading the bottom of the screen here with 3 guys to the right of the center, and then just the 1 defensive end on the left. So the Chargers are like, all right, we're going to slide to Will Anderson. We're going to slide to the 3-man rush. Unfortunately, this is another level of just miscommunication between Zion Johnson and Bradley Bozeman. So as you can see here, both the right guard and Bozeman tap their left hip, which is usually an indication, especially if the right guard's doing it, telling the running back and the quarterback which way the offensive line is sliding to. You'll usually see either the guard or the center have a motion with their inside hand, letting them know which way the offensive line is sliding to, so the running back can then fit in on the other side. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, Zion's first step is to look out to the left, as almost as if it's a three-man slide with the right guard, right tackle, and center on one, and then the left guard and left tackle money. But Zion doesn't have any player over the top of him, so it should be a four-man slide, with Zion's first step being a post step, protecting that backside A gap. So when Bozeman slides into his right side A gap, looking to make sure that 96 doesn't slant inside, and 97 crosses his face, he's expecting Zion Johnson to be there, which he's not, and then 97 is able just to get a free path all the way to the quarterback. The other part of this is that Rashawn Slater is on an island here. He has no help, and unfortunately, after his second or third kick, he immediately opens up with his hips facing the sideline. This allows 55 from the Texans to cut his path to the quarterback, and he's able to get Herbert at the same time that 97 is. So now that we've watched the games, let's take a look to see what the Chargers have already done within free agency, and then where the Chargers could be looking to pick up during the NFL draft. So up first in their transactions, one of the first things that they did was re-sign Bradley Bozeman. They signed him to a 2-year, $6.5 million deal. Up next is Andre James, who signed a 1-year, $1 million deal from the Las Vegas Raiders. This is kind of an interesting pickup. He was a starter for the Raiders since 2021, and then last season, when the Raiders drafted Jackson Powers Johnson up from Oregon, he kind of actually lost that spot, but still played about in 11 games last season. So expect Andre James to give Bradley Bozeman good competition for that center position going into training camp and into the season. And then finally, the big free agency splash that they made was a player that I thought that the New England Patriots should pick up, but the Chargers made this move, was with Mekhi Becton. They signed him to a 2-year, $20 million deal. I think this makes sense with what the Chargers are trying to prove upon, especially with the offensive line. I think Mekhi Becton will be able to slide right into that right guard spot, solidifying one of the key areas that the Chargers were trying to address during the offseason. With Mekhi Becton sliding into the right guard spot, this is going to give a lot of competition to players like Zion Johnson, Bradley Bozeman, Andre James, all these guys who can play different positions on the offensive line to really compete and show out their best, not only for the other guard spot, but the center position as well, as it's been discussed about possibly Zion Johnson in the next year or so making the transition to center, should the Chargers pick up another guard. Then for the draft, I think a lot of people before the Mekhi Becton signing had the Chargers picking up an offensive lineman, specifically either a guard or a guy that played center in college. But now that I think with the signing of Mekhi Becton, I think you see a lot of the mock drafts have, tight ends, receivers, defensive linemen being picked up in the first and second rounds for the Chargers. So instead, I think at pick 158, the Chargers should look at these two guys to see if they're available. First is Connor Colby from Iowa. Colby is one of the longest tenured players to ever play for Kirk Fennerts at Iowa. I think he has about 50 games underneath his belt. All Big Ten, academic Big Ten, 6'6", 310 pounds. Really good offensive lineman. And then the next player is Clay Webb out of Jacksonville State. Now, Clay actually started his career at the University of Georgia for about 3 years and was actually a 5-star coming out of high school. Didn't get the playing time that he wanted at Georgia, so he made the move to go down to Jacksonville, Alabama, and it turned out pretty well for him. Was, all conference there, played really well. He's also a guy that they can move in different spots. Not only he played left guard at Jacksonville State, I think expect him to compete for all the interior offensive line spots. Same thing with Connor Colby. Well, that's the end of the video. If you're a Chargers fan, let me know how I did. What do you think I got right? What I got wrong? And if you're a fan of another team, let me know what team I should break down next. Make sure to follow me on all my social medias, linked down in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell icon, and I'll see you guys next time.